Well, it's like, hey, thank you for not. And no, I mean, you can accept that you get, get you the same way, especially being that's on forward. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I looked at, those revisions, the, contract. DOC. See, that's why, okay, they spaced, yeah, exactly, well, I don't think, I had all that information, good with that. Arbitration slash G. Just make sure, yeah, I said yes. That was basically. Yeah.
You are streaming, so the mic is hot.
Yeah.
You are streaming, so the mic is hot. Well, there's no, I don't know that there's a mute button on it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Make sure. I said yay or nay. I said yeah, that was good. It was fine. We're good to go. I think that's it. All right, that works. Thanks, sir. It's still. Ready?
Ready.
Welcome this evening. I'm calling this work session, Beaufort County Commissioners to order. Guess whoever wants to start.
Yes, I would like to suggest that we have Joel walk us through the plan unit development outline. Sorry, I don't have the mic right in front of my mouth. So yeah, I'd like, if Joel is willing to walk us through the PUD outline, I would suggest that we start there.
Sure, I can do that. What you have in front of you is an outline plan for the Henry County Technology Planned Unit Development. And essentially the start of what a planned unit development is a zoning district, similar to what the county has other zoning districts for industrial or residential uses. But a planned unit development is different in that it allows for development that mixes uses that would not otherwise be allowed in any one single district. So it gives flexibility to a developer to have different types of uses that aren't contemplated in other one single district. A planned unit development is statutorily authorized. The county has adopted as part of its zoning code a procedure for adopting planned unit development districts, hence why you have an application in front of you in this particular instance. A approving a plan unit development for the, at least for the commissioner's approval, is you get the outline plan, and then it's essentially the approval of creating a separate planned unit development zoning district. So that's what you will have in front of you, or have in front of you to make a decision on after the plan commission has made a recommendation. If you were to adopt the plan commission recommendation, it would create a planned unit development district in this particular instance that would be subject to the provisions of the general outline plan, and then a later development plan that would be more specific, that would be approved by the plan commission, that details the specific uses and specific requirements for the development.
So is it accurate that this is the only time the commissioners will have any input on this,
Yes,
the usage of this land?
correct,
This
yes,
is the only time.
yes. I mean, with respect to this particular process, yes, this would be the commissioner's step in the process, so to speak.
So if we move further down, as different customers come or any specific project comes to this land, the commissioners won't see it again.
As the ordinance is currently drafted, that's correct. Yeah, I mean, there could be amendments that would be of such significance that it would have to come back before the commissioners again. But provided that any future development would be within the parameters of the outline plan, then yes, it'd be the last time the commissioners weigh in. And so this particular plan, like contemplated, the outline plan doesn't have to have the specificity that an ultimate development plan would. But it does outline some broad uses that would be permitted, and I believe, those uses include, potential data center use, industrial and advanced manufacturing, power and utility infrastructure, and then other industrial uses be permitted in an I-2 district.
Yes. And so if this PUD is approved and the data center project doesn't materialize into a data center project, it's still being governed by a heavy industrial underlying zoning.
Those would be other, yes, those would be other approved uses that could take place on the property, is what this contemplates.
And so it says the PUD shall be developed in one or multiple phases, each subject to development plan review and approval as outlined in Title 10, Section 3 of the Development Code. This outline plan includes the required map, text describing uses and development standards and exhibits. It replaces all other standards in the Development Code unless otherwise stated herein. I don't know, I know you don't memorize all of our Development Code, but that's the part of the Development Code that describes the approval process.
Yes.
Okay, and so I saw mention in here somewhere that there's going to be a potential technical development team. I can't remember the wording.
Technical review.
Technical review committee. And then our zoning administrator mentioned there may or may not be a technical review committee. I think it was depending on the needs. So do you know what part of this comes back to the planning commission? What part lies specifically with Tom as our zoning administrator, and what would trigger the need for a technical review committee?
I don't know those distinctions off the top of my head,
No.
unfortunately.
Okay.
Tom's president, you currently utilize the technical review committee for any decisions?
We form one for specific purposes.
Yeah.
Subdivisions were fairly complicated, or subdivision development. We will utilize a technical committee for anything. So
And who,
sometimes we have yet to really determine who that is. Some of the people that would be on that committee would be people that, like Mr. Russ might be on that because it is, and he will, whether he likes, would involve grading issues.
that area, so it also involved, people from, highway department, would be involved in that. We'll invite the state people in for their input, mostly county coders, county roads around there. So anybody that offer technical input as compliance with code, be invited to be members of that.
And I wanted to talk about, number one, the explanation of compliance with adopted land use policies. And I don't have page numbers on mine. This reads, the PUD complies with the Henry County Comprehensive Plan adopted in 2018 by advancing proactive land use strategies. It's that paragraph as it starts.
Sure.
And I wanted to open up a discussion with the commissioners. Our county PUD ordinance states that the county commissioner should consider whether or not the PUD meets the comprehensive plan. And the claim here in the PUD is that it does comply with the comprehensive plan. But I wanted to raise for discussion on page 54 of the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan states that this specific project site is prime agricultural land, partly, and partly agricultural land. And the comprehensive land states that prime agricultural land should be protected. On page 56, it says that on prime agricultural lands, we should discourage the extension of city and town services such as sewers. And so I wanted to see if either commissioner had any thought about the conflict with the agricultural plan or the comprehensive plan about protecting prime agricultural lands.
You like to explain the definition on how that works along the border? I don't know if I can really explain the definition of the border. Active, we have borders of development. 109, for instance, is one safer free on any major road. US 40 was identified as major border that's been developed over the years. And same comprehensive plan calls for development around the state.
Yes, on page 84 of the comprehensive plan, there's a definition of how the 109 corridor should be developed. It says that the county's rural image should be preserved and appropriate uses for this area include estate housing and equestrian farms. So I think it is important to consider that we are evaluating whether or not this PUD ordinance complies with the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan states that prime agricultural land should be preserved, that we should discourage the extension of city and town services such as sewers through that land. And it defines how the 109 corridor should be developed, listing an appropriate use as estate housing and or equestrian farms.
So then, should we not allow the truck stop to go there? Should we shut it down?
That's a little bit of a red herring because it's already done.
But it was done, the Love's truck stop was done afterwards.
So maybe this will help answer that question. So the PUD ordinance also says that the comprehensive plan and any other adopted planning objectives of the county should be considered. So in 2025, a steering committee was formed to look at the 109 corridor development. And this being done just a year ago, we have a new map that designates that area as light industrial. And one of the takeaways in that 109 corridor development plan is that the comprehensive plan should be updated to include this area as light industrial. So we have a 2018 comprehensive plan saying that the land should be maintained agricultural, and we should focus on estate housing and equestrian farms. We have a very recent plan designating that area as light industrial, which I think is more of what a truck stop would be, though I'm not sure about that. So maybe that's the answer to your question. And now we have a PUD that is heavy industrial in an area that was just a year ago or less intended to be light industrial. I think it is important as community leaders that we not just develop plans and pay money to have them developed and then discard them when they're not convenient. The whole purpose of zoning is to be thoughtful about land usage. And so when you have plans in place that have been researched, then they should be followed. So you could make the argument, well, data centers, we didn't know a data center was an issue then, but the underlying zoning discussion is still relevant. It was not intended since 2018 and forward, and just reemphasized, it's not intended to be heavy industrial. So I think that this PUD is inconsistent with our comprehensive plan and the 109 corridor plan that was just developed. So I think that the claim in the PUD is false. I wanted, since move on now, I want to consider the overall impact of an average data center. And I think it is relatively understood that the average data center drains natural resources. They consume vast amounts of electricity, water, and land. And so we have heard a lot of statements about how this specific data center is going to be very different. And specifically, it will be different in the amount of water that's used and on its impact to the grid. And while I was reading through the PUD very carefully, I was looking for commitments towards that end. Is there a commitment that is measurable regarding water usage? I read that the PUD prioritizes and pursues advanced water technologies that will dramatically reduce consumption, maximize system efficiency, and incorporate reuse and recycling capabilities. I did not read any commitment regarding an amount of water that will be used. And simultaneously, I read that the developers are speaking with Knights County and Shirley about funding extensions of infrastructure to the project site. And so I'm going to assume that if they're considering updating two different towns' water capacity, that they are going to use a significant amount of water. And so I don't think that we can automatically assume then that this data center will have no negative effect on our aquifer. I have been told, and until I'm told otherwise with data, that our aquifer is precipitation fed only and is lowering over time. And so until I am reassured otherwise, I can't be confident that there's not going to be a negative impact on the aquifer. We're also told that electric generation will be from high efficiency natural gas generation, but I did not see that commitment in the PUD. I saw no commitment for a specific type of technology that would reduce emissions or any type of emissions requirements. We were told that the project would be a net positive contribution to the grid without taking any land by eminent domain, which I find impossible to believe. And other issues I see are that the pipeline doesn't run through the project sites. The existing water wells in Knightstown are on private lands, and running water lines through private ground outside of city limits requires property owner permission, which has not all been granted. And given those issues with the project, if we go ahead and approve this PUD, given those issues and the data center doesn't materialize, we fall back again to heavy heavy industrial, which is not conducive to it does not comply with the comprehensive plan. And I know that the other commissioners probably have comments too, but I do want to say that since I entered government 7 years ago, I have sat through countless discussions about poor contracts the county has engaged in. Repeatedly, elected officials have signed contracts that are much more in favor of the opposite party than our own interests. And then other elected officials down the line have to figure out how to back out of or resolve those unenforceable contracts. And I see this as the same thing. As leaders, we're elected to make wise choices for our constituents. And I find it difficult to believe that many of my constituents would sign a vague contract regarding their own property. I would not sign a vague contract regarding my own property. And as a commissioner elected to represent this county, this is the only time I'll vote on this project. So it is possible that it will materialize in a positive way, but if at some point it doesn't, I do not get to contribute to it anymore. This is my only vote. And at this point, right now, this PUD does not guarantee that there is not going to be a water issue. It does not guarantee there's not going to be an air quality issue. So now I have to go in a way that protects the people in the county. So I think that this PUD fails to ensure that our constituents in that area of the county are protected.
Anything, Joe?
I don't have anything to add to what Ms. Susan said.
Joe? Be all right to ask comments from the developer, would it?
You can ask, at your meeting, you can ask anybody that you want to hear from,
To ask either one of you to address.
I think that,
the issue.
I think if we open up the floor to the developers, we open up the floor to everyone, which you just said you didn't want to do.
All right, then never mind. We're not doing that. Wanted to technical advice, so I figure that's why I asked Tom Green.
I think that at this point, we are evaluating the PUD as submitted. And that is what was recommended by the Planning Commission. So anything that the developer said would not change the submitted PUD. It would be more technical input, not guaranteed. Is that appropriate, what I just suggested, or should the developers have been allowed to speak?
Well, I mean, it's your guys' meeting, so you can dictate the conduct of what goes on in it. And I mean, it's your own evaluation of what the scenario. I don't know necessarily if it's a right answer
Right.
to that question. I mean, Steve could have a different view of it. Joe could have a different view of it.
Should we take it by vote then, Steve, since you and I disagreed?
Well, I'm fine. Like I said, this was supposed to be a discussion over the PUD, so that's what we'll do. I just figured you made a comment about
Right.
the commitment to it. I wanted to make sure that was what that was intended, because that was what I assumed the PUD was doing.
Right. I mean, I'd be more interested in whether or not Joel thinks I misinterpreted the PUD. Is their commitment I'm not reading? I'd be more interested in that at this point, personally. Joe, do you want to?
I have read the PUD a number of times, and I believe that I understand what it says. And for this document, I don't have any questions, if that's what we're talking about.
So because no one has walked out yet while I'm talking, so I haven't bored everybody yet, I'll just continue talking. And the other two commissioners are still sitting here, so they're tolerating my talking as well. I did just research the definition of heavy industry. Large-scale manufacturing, processing, and storage might create significant noise, traffic, environmental impact, should be separated from residential zones. The goal of heavy industrial is to keep intense industrial activities away from homes, schools, and commercial zones. Many people here know these things far better than I do. I did also think it was noteworthy that the 300-foot setback is really not excessive for heavy industry. So again, we see a PUD that would have the appearance of being very protective, but yet in a heavy industry area for a massive power plant, a 300-foot setback is not necessarily spectacular, in my opinion. I did a lot of research about the landscape berm and whether or not that would provide adequate noise protection for the individuals in that area. And again, many people know this information far better than I do, but I read that a berm that is not as tall as where it is supposed to protect is relatively ineffective. And so if you're talking about multiple story homes, I read that the best place for a berm is either right by the sound or right by the recipient of the sound. So if you have a noise, a berm, and a house, that berm is too far away, the noise is simply going to go around the berm. My husband drew some nice pictures of that for me to help me understand. So in short, I don't really see how this project doesn't drastically impact the area that it goes into. I did have a question from the beginning about the natural gas power plant. What does this level of NOx emissions mean? What does this level of CO2 mean? I requested information from the developers. I tried to get examples. And one of the things I really wanted to know, but I couldn't find, was how different from this is this from living beside 70, which many of us do. And so someone far smarter than I, sent me a analysis he had done that if you drive by the truck stop now and measure CO2 levels, you're looking at approximately 30 trucks, maybe 30, 50, whatever the number. Many people drive there more often than I do. The amount of CO2 that will be produced from this natural gas power plant is more like into thousands of trucks. So I think we should stop saying it is equivalent. It's not equivalent. 30 trucks versus 2,000 trucks is not the same thing. So let's at least find out exactly what we're talking about and not draw false comparisons. What exactly is the amount of CO2 and that information again, or any protection or air quality monitoring is not in the PUD. And that's the picture my husband drew me to help me understand how berm works. So. I think that a project of this magnitude is a huge undertaking. It is a topic that many of us are not very familiar with. Many of us don't have the expertise in. It would require expertise, massive planning, massive coordination and cooperation. This is the first time that the three of us have had conversation together about this project. And, and even now, there's limited, I mean, we still have limited information about it. So,
We just gonna sit here.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what she's gonna talk about next. I was under the impression on CO2 levels, I'd have the state monitor those.
yeah, I'm sure they would pull the appropriate air permits. I just don't, I would like to have more visibility into it than just pulling the appropriate air permits. So when I was going through this, I mean, I have said everything that I wanted to say, but if we want to go through and make a list of each concerning part of the project and debate with each other whether or not it is safe, what would make it safer, what we like about it, what we don't, I think that would be, we could do that.
I'll ask Tom Green a question, if it's all right with you.
Okay.
Once this is, whether it's approved, with the development committee form, correct?
Yeah.
What that, that's a development phase, development phase. They haven't studies or anything like that, that's why development takes so long to actually to be approved, but no approved, there's a period of time they have to develop. Don't know, there's a limit on how long that could be, but from that equipment. Because I thought most of these things were going to be addressed and answered during that development. They would be process. Yeah, they would be. That's why.
They don't have the outline, it's kind of like building a house. If you walk in with your house plans, you can build it. Got a general idea of the direction to go. There, the development part of the process is, says we will follow the plan. But in the implementation of the plan, you might find that we can't build that house exactly there we need. There's a problem, thing, right? So we can't run the power to the house this way because of gas line. So, what the real need of the program, what developers submit.
And my issue with that is that doesn't come back before the commissioners.
It comes back to the planning commission, back to the office, comes back to the committee, there's longer that will be put on that. Experts will get the expert. The question will be asked, if, for instance, water, they'll have to do some research into how much water is available. If you look at it, we'll go, well, here's your development. It looks like you can only get enough water for 2 buildings, and that's all we'll be able to develop, and that's where the plan might stop. Anything that's not developed, who chooses the committee?
We'll have to make sure that there's no input from the public, so it's fair to everybody. I think,
Hold up,
yeah,
we're starting to get. I can't tell you that right now, because we are not anywhere close to that. Yeah.
but important to remember that if that does happen and there's a holdup on the water and the development stops, that the underlying designation is heavy industrial, which is not, does not correspond with the comprehensive plan. So there's still an issue with that. Even if we go through the water studies show data center isn't going to work, the zoning is still not, it still doesn't match our comprehensive plan and I-109 corridor study.
That's one recommendation. That all bridges for people, need to develop all, go for the.
I'd be willing to engage in that discussion. I think it's an interesting discussion.
What's the point of having a planning and zoning board?
I'd be willing to engage in the whole discussion. I think that's all good discussion.
Then that makes us czars, and that's not the way democracy is supposed to work.
But it is good to be able to hold your elected officials accountable. And so we are accountable to the people that elected us.
If you would like to look at the summary.
Okay.
Comprehensive. Yeah.
Sure, I'll take a look at it, see if I. Yeah, and I guess the paragraphs I think that Tom wanted me to look at, the comprehensive plan, talk about that the plan and future development decisions are to be looked at with flexibility and the idea of growth going into the future. So I think that like this comprehensive plan and almost every other comprehensive plan I've seen, I think you can take any development and find things in it that will support or go against whatever the intended use is. I think they're drafted that way, partly because state law requires you to pay what's called reasonable regard to the comprehensive plan. And so what that means is you have to consider it, but how you consider it and how you interpret it is largely a function of you as the legislative body.
I still think it's telling, though, that we just revisited the issue a year ago and came out with light industrial. So the issue's been designated in 2018 as important to consider and just revisited. In fact, this I-109 corridor plan was presented to the public like 2 days before I heard about the data center project. And they're not, it doesn't comply with that recommendation.
I asked a question. 109 corridor plan.
No. I suspect it wasn't brought to us because it doesn't align with this project. That's my personal opinion. The steering committee had Corey and Penny, Roger Hammer, another name I didn't recognize. I'm not sure I brought that with me. No, Corey passed, he sent it to us and said he was going to bring it to us for approval, and then he never did that.
If PUD doesn't develop, and it not go back, because we're not with rezon plan, that's important, right? No, even if it does pass, the undeveloped parts, let's say developed parts, building, the undeveloped parts, still remain farmland. If it passes, they develop it, don't develop it within the period. Goes back farm.
But it could pass and then be developed in a reasonable amount of time as any type of heavy industrial.
Thing, PUD strengths.
So I apologize to the people here and to anyone listening that the first work session did not happen because of an error in advertising. I have been trying to find a time for a second work session, though I'm wondering now if that's necessary. And I'm wondering if we should not have the second work session. And we're not allowed to vote on anything, right, Joel? So do we need to
We
vote
didn't-
to decide not to
No,
have the second
yeah,
work
you
session?
could come to a consensus to not
Okay.
have a second work session, and you just wouldn't advertise it, not me.
Do you, either of you have other things that you would want to talk about at a subsequent work session?
I don't believe I have anything other than what we can do in a regular commissioners meeting. I don't have anything for a work session.
So possibly you might have something to mention in our next commissioner meeting, you're saying,
I
but you
think we
don't.
have some items on the agenda for the next meeting that will be discussed. I don't have anything else to add
I think.
for a work session.
So should I then stop trying to schedule the next work session? And then we'll plan on just holding the public hearing.
I don't see any reason for another work session, because obviously this is pretty much where we're at. We're not gaining anything going forward, so.
Mhm. Do we want to take a minute and discuss the format of the public hearing? Because I've been getting questions about what that might look like, and then everyone will know what to expect.
Well, I think we definitely need to have guidelines, that's for sure. Everybody needs to stay focused.
So the public hearing is scheduled from 6 to 8. And one idea that I had was that we would have a certain period of time for people speaking in favor of the data center or technology park, a certain period of time for people speaking against, and then a certain period of time designated for our discussion and vote.
We don't vote.
At the public hearing. We do, or we do not? We're not voting at the public hearing?
No,
When are we voting?
meeting.
Okay. So people will not be there then when we vote, limited capacity.
I mean, we can drag this on for the next 15 years, Susan, if
Not-
you'd like to.
No, I don't want to drag it on. I'm trying to have a process that is fair to the
Understand
public.
that, You're wanting a process. I'm trying to say that there's no way I'm gonna make everybody in this room happy, neither you or Joe or any of us sitting here. And no matter what the decision process is, somebody's gonna be upset. What I'm saying is, we set our guidelines and our rules, and then how we do it. That's for the public hearing
I didn't plan on voting during the public hearing part of it because we were going to take comments. It may change something on how we decide what we're doing. So then that gives time to reflect on what was said at the public hearing, and then you could have your vote at your meeting. Because there may be things brought up and discussed that may change somebody's mind. So, and it gives you time to reflect on it and decide, okay, was this good or bad? So if you call for a vote right then and somebody goes, okay, you know, I never had time to think about that, it may alter what they were thinking or what they may decide.
Okay. Do you agree with that, Joe?
I did not think we were gonna vote at the public hearing. I was never told that. We've never talked about that.
Okay.
We're gonna vote at the commissioners meeting. That's
Okay.
what I thought.
So then, are we opening up to an hour of input on each side at the public hearing? Because we scheduled a 2-hour public hearing.
I didn't think we should go over 30 minutes max myself, but you know, I think we should give, it's equal opportunity. You've got pro, con, and I think we should hear from, zoning, planning, administration, legal, and the developers for that matter, because then everybody has an even seat at the table at that point.
Can you make that list again? Zoning,
Zoning, pro, con, legal, and developer.
okay, so if you do the math on that, does that add up to 2 hours?
I said it'd be 30 minutes max, so that's not if you're from 50 to 20, or you limit it to 3 minutes or 2 minutes conversation for those that want to speak.
So 30 minutes for, 30 minutes against. How long do you want for legal and zoning? Are you wanting 30, are you wanting equal increments for each group?
I think that's fair.
30 minutes for the developers, so,
30 minutes.
um,
Do what?
so if we do 30 minutes in favor, 30 minutes against, 30 minutes for the developers, that's 90 minutes. So that's still not mathing correctly. So is zoning and legal together, or are they separate?
It could be either or. I don't know how much legal you're going to have or how much the zoning would probably have.
I wouldn't
more so.
anticipate 30 minutes, I mean, unless either specific questions come up. I mean, I would, you know, probably do a brief outline of the process, and I don't know what Tom would have in addition to that.
How much time do you think you would like?
So, what it is, for somebody to, what it is, like, this, I would, like, in it, all expect.
So do you think that 30 minutes together for you two is giving you plenty of time then to say what you want to say? Okay, that's our 2 hours then. So 30 minutes in favor, 30 minutes against, 30 minutes for the developers, and 30 minutes for legal and zoning.
And it doesn't have to have the 2 hours. It just says we were going to have 2 hours. If we finished in an hour and a half, there's nothing that says we.
It's not like I don't have anything else to do either. I'm just trying to make a plan to communicate to the,
Fill 2 hours in it.
I'm not trying to fill the whole 2 hours. I'm trying to make a plan.
So I'm just saying it doesn't have to.
So the issues with that reference to this specific, I won't talk about anything else. There is a lot of.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because we have to have, please, we have to try to be respectful to everybody. We haven't let anyone speak, and I just want it to, not trying to make people happy, I'm trying to do what's right. And what's right is that we have the same rules for everybody tonight, and that's all I'm saying. And then I do have a concern with the fact that I'm supposed to vote on this PUD, and there's this addendum or something that I haven't seen yet. And so how far are we into this 90-day process?
I know of no addendum.
You just said you had extra guidelines.
Yeah, it's just the ordinance that was approved, but
That's.
Okay.
yeah, that's what he's
Okay.
talking about. was your
It is
correct.
what again?
It would be the ordinance. If you were to approve it, you would adopt an ordinance that says we're
Okay.
approving this.
I'm
as a
sorry, I
PUD
understand.
district. That's
Okay.
essentially what Mr. Reed's referring to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then are we setting a time limit per person for people speaking? Are we saying 3 minutes or?
Yes.
Okay, so if we have questions from anybody, we can communicate that 30 minutes for, 30 minutes against, 30 minutes for developers, 30 minutes for legal and zoning. Each person can speak for 3 minutes.
And to answer your second question, I believe around February 20, I think was the date we talked about where if no action is taken by the Board of Commissioners, it would be deemed approved. Yeah, you have a 90-day period after Plan Commission certification.
What was that date, Joe?
I believe it's around February 20th, yeah, it's in that range.
So public hearing is January 17th. So would we expect to vote then at our following commissioner meeting?
Twenty-first.
Twenty-first.
I thought it was the 20.
I don't know.
Saturday.
But
I didn't think the schedule's on Saturday.
It's on the 21st.
21st. Okay, so sorry.
Yeah.
So 21st. And then what would our next commissioner meeting be then?
Should be on the 28th.
So we would expect to vote on the 28th.
So.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So move.